Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dragon's Den. Pull up a seat by the fire and enjoy a drink of your choice. For today's podcast episode, I am going through all of my Toastmasters speeches to date. Even my contest speech that will be performed and presented in a week and a half. So you guys get to be the first people to hear this speech. I'm looking forward to it. Now, the purpose of this episode is just to show you what I've done, what I've prepared, what I've delivered, and hopefully see some growth along the way. That's kind of the hope, at least. And I'm very excited to share this with you. Because, yes, as last episode revealed, in Toastmasters, there are pathways and a program you follow. So all these speeches that I've written, created, delivered, and will deliver are all part of this program. So for each speech, I'll give you a little blurb, a little spiel about why this speech was used and what it was meant for. Without further ado, let's begin with my first speech in Toastmasters. This speech was my icebreaker. So the purpose for this speech should be straightforward. All I had to do was write an icebreaker speech that described and told the club who I was and why I joined Toastmasters. So let's begin. Now I will preface, before each speech you have to start with a thank you to the Toastmaster and the group. So each speech will have this introduction, so bear with me. And beginning. My icebreaker speech, Caring for Nouns. Thank you, Toastmaster and fellow members, for allowing me to introduce myself today. I am Violet Wallace, and something that is an important part of who I am is my passion for getting to know other people, places, and things, aka nouns. Living in Canada, we follow a policy of multiculturalism. Now, this is something that is a bit debated due to politics and culture, but that basically means that we grow up and live in a world where we accept other people and their cultures, their languages, their beliefs, and we celebrate those things with them. And living in Cold Lake when I was quite young, we had an event called Maple Flag. So we have the biggest military base in Canada, so a lot of people from all over the world will come to our base to get trained every year. That was my very first introduction to many different people from many different places, and it really fueled a huge curiosity in me. I remember wanting to look up what these flags were that they were wearing on their uniforms, what languages they were speaking, and just really diving into just Googling what I could. That really instilled this curiosity in me to travel and learn about other people and places. This also was the reason why I've traveled a lot. I've been to the United States, Mexico, all over Europe, and really I got to finally see these places and these flags that these men were wearing. What was also amazing is that I really got to dive into the cultures and see personal perspectives and their outlook on what happened in all of these big famous events like World War I, World War II, how they perceived it, what actually really happened to them versus what was learned in school, and that really made me a much more open-minded and understanding person. However, there was a downside. I did all of this traveling by myself, for myself, independently. Now, independence is absolutely a celebrated thing. However, because I was never in one place for too long, I've never had those lifelong friends or connections or really being connected with so many people. Now, this is why I'm here in Toastmasters today. I want to work on how I come across to people, my communication skills obviously, but also to form connections and network in a way that I didn't think I could ever do while living the life I've lived up till now. I care for nouns, and I really look forward to this journey to help me connect with others again, to fully enjoy my curiosities, travels, and life even more than I do now. Thank you. Bam. That was my very first speech. Now, I did get some feedback, and it was really nice because they were really, really sweet, and that icebreaker actually won Best Speaker as part of that club and that meeting, which was really amazing. The feedback I got was I spoke very clearly, I had great pace, a great smile, there was passion in my speech, the theme was excellent and worked very well, and I had my 3 segments, the rule of 3s when it comes to delivering a speech. I had some warm humor, I'm a very friendly person, I had vocal variety, which is really important, and body language. However, they suggested that I try to quote or show us what I will say just through like a quote or a really interesting connection, basically, instead of telling them what I was going to talk about, this caring for nouns idea. And they also suggested I stood up for body language and use more gestures while I delivered the speech. Spoiler alert, I have not yet stood up for a speech. I'm not quite comfortable doing that on a camera for some reason. But I have shifted my view, so I'm actually more of my upper body is in the camera, so I can do my gestures better. So yeah, that was the first speech. Moving on, I had to do a second speech. And this speech was based on, I could pick any topic of my choice, of my choosing, and deliver this speech in any way that I would like. Informative, humorously, inspiring, motivating, basically any of that. And this speech basically for me was about D&D. So for this speech here, I chose this topic because I really do love Dungeons & Dragons, as you guys probably have heard in the 3 or 4 weeks I did D&D stuff with. Yes. And I wanted to share that passion with the club. I figured it'd be another great way for them to get to know me. So, without further ado, this is speech number 2. And it's called, I think I just called it D&D speech, to be honest. Yep. So, D&D speech. There you go. Thank you, Toastmaster, fellow members, and guests. Imagine that we are all together emerging from a cafe in the late morning. A thick, misty fog rolls in and the temperature drops a few degrees, rather rapidly. We begin to part ways, not thinking much of it. We're in Canada, weather changes quite often and quickly. No big deal. When suddenly the outlines of 3 figures come into view. They are deathly silent as they approach us. When a sheer metallic sound rings 3 times, before any of us could do anything or say anything to the figures, they charge forward, glints of metal catching the few rays of light present. I would like you all to pick up a 20-sided dice and roll for initiative. Now, what on earth did I just do there? Anyone? I crafted a situation that could be easily thrown into a Dungeons & Dragons game. Dungeons & Dragons is a fantasy role-playing game that takes a group of people and transports them into a created world where they have to go through a variety of challenges in order to have their characters develop and grow stronger over time. While this is a game for people to play and have fun in, D&D provides people with much more than just a few hours of entertainment. It also aids us in all aspects of our daily life. For myself, D&D has not only allowed for me to meet new friends and be more sociable online during quarantine, it has also helped me to work on parts of myself to become a better person. Apart from being in Toastmasters to work on finding my voice, D&D allows me to explore and practice aspects of myself I would like to work on. For example, I have been wanting to work on being more assertive and speak up for myself. Creating a character that has to have high charisma challenges me to practice those skills weekly. What makes D&D a great game is the ability to use it in such a way as you are free to try out skills in a no-risk environment and safely with friends there to help and support you. Your friends can give you feedback on how you tried it in the context of the game. D&D also allows you to process the more difficult parts of life as well. Mental health has been a huge focus lately in a lot of parts of the world, and it's sadly becoming a buzzword. However, in D&D, there are these amazing moments where something tough does happen in a game, and it could reflect a little bit on the players' lives as well. There's this famous Critical Role D&D show that one of the players lost his mother in the very first campaign while they were airing it and recording it and being live. He admitted that playing the game and dealing with that through role-playing and being in a room surrounded by his friends really helped him get through that very difficult moment. It also allows us to reenact those tough moments, to really allow ourselves to feel what we really need to feel. It gives us that coping mechanism to help manage with our lives and daily situations. I've also had various friends mention the benefits of playing D&D for themselves as well. My friend Finn has mentioned that she has loved meeting and interacting with people that share her joy and interest in storytelling and adventure. Another benefit that my artist friend Ro has talked to me about the past 2 years is having D&D provide her with the skill to better verbally describe things in her life outside of simply always reverting to her artwork. This has led for her to write pieces for her artwork and display them in an exhibit earlier this year. Various other benefits include working on social skills, thinking more creatively, building on teamworking skills, and to also help us more cognitively speaking through problem-solving skills. There is so much more to say about this game that I dearly love and devotedly play every week. However, now that you all have heard how D&D has impacted me and my friends in our lives in such a positive way, will you pick up a 20-sided dice and roll for initiative yourselves? Yeah, there is that speech. So for this speech, the feedback I got was that I had really good gestures and the passion was clearly there. I had a very strong opening and ending. The humor was present with the little D&D jokes and rolling for initiative idea. I gave very helpful tips and I went into a lot of depth. And it was actually almost a constructive educational speech with a lot of fun elements to it. When I gave this speech back in November, it looks like, I was so nervous that I spoke really fast. So there was one thing I had to be cautious about is my speed and really work on that pace. And another thing that the evaluator said would be really helpful is to actually bring in a character that I've played to use them in examples and be more specific. This is where I also got the feedback that it's really cool that all these benefits have happened in D&D, but you should give a speech on how to get involved in D&D. And with that one little tidbit leads to my next speech. So this is the same project, still giving a 5 to 7 minute speech. And then the idea for the second speech was to use that feedback I'd gotten or I had received, and really used it in my next speech. So of course with this podcast, you're not going to hear a change in pace or hear me use examples and things like that. Like, that's not going to be too present for all of you. But I'm really happy with the speech, and I can't wait to share it with you. This was a speech I delivered literally just 2 weeks after that speech, so this is how fast I've worked in the program, and I'm very proud of myself for it. This next D&D related speech, of course, is called Come Roll With Me. Toastmaster, fellow members, and honored guests, have you ever wanted to roll a 20-sided die that will allow you to slay monsters or even fall in love? Lucky enough for you, I can tell you how. There are many ways to get involved and begin playing Dungeons & Dragons, even in the middle of a pandemic. My first recommendation is to start looking into some of the official Dungeons & Dragons material. D&D Beyond is a fantastic place to start, as you can join for free and you have access to most of the basic resources you'll need, such as the Player's Handbook. The Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons walks new players through how to make a character, what do all these stats and terminology mean, as well as the mechanics of the game, such as what initiative means and when you need to roll a dice or more. I prefer the hard copy of the book personally, as it feels like an adventure all on its own, just flipping through the pages to find all the elements needed for my idea of a character I want to create. For those more tech savvy, you can find digital copies anywhere online, even through a quick Google search. Either way, learning how the game works and how to make a character is an excellent first step in getting interested in Dungeons & Dragons, as you will be making many characters the more you learn and play. I have 31 characters, and others I know have over 100. After exploring and making characters for yourself, you are ready to play. But how do you get started? If you want to play in person and locally, there are a few gaming cafes here in my city that not only have tables for groups to play at, but often sell materials as well that you will need to play. Materials such as the 7 dice set required to play the game, the notebooks, character sheets, all of these things are actually available at these stores. Tabletop Cafe is one example, and they even sell their products online as well for you to be delivered to you. People will also create meetups and make arrangements with the cafe to host games quite frequently. Now, another way to find a D&D group here locally in the city is on Meetup. There is not much currently going on for D&D, as the pandemic does make it difficult for it, but people will post on there quite frequently a location, time, and details of the game for you to see if you will be interested. There's also a way to message organizers to obtain more information about the game they are running and to ask if a brand new player may join, as some people may not be able to accommodate beginners depending on where they are in the campaign, the story, and the levels of characters already in place. With the current restrictions in effect for COVID, I am pleased to say there is one more place for you to check out and play D&D. Roll20.net is a phenomenal platform to find games to play online, as well as create your own game. Again, this website is free to join with the option of purchasing materials to play the game as well. What is different about Roll20 versus D&D Beyond is that you can actually find a game to play in. Right on the homepage is a button that says Join a Game, and will take you to a page that allows you to advance search for a D&D game. Now, of course, there are risks to join strangers online to play D&D, but if you click on a game, you can read a lot about the story, the level, mature content, etc. in order to discover if you would enjoy the gameplay or not. Now, I recommend playing with that group that you find for at least 2 to 3 sessions to see if you like the group and fit in well. Not every group will be a perfect fit. Be sure to check out multiple groups and enjoy bringing your characters on paper to life. Dungeons & Dragons is a very versatile game, as I hope you can now see. Whether you begin your adventures on your own through character creation practice, finding a local group to play with, or being comfortable at home playing online, I sincerely hope you will roll your first initiative in the near future and find a great group of new friends who will support your journey in Dungeons & Dragons. Boom, boom. That was that D&D speech. Now, I gotta get to the feedback. So, it was a really fun speech to do, obviously, because I love D&D, and getting people to play is so important to me, and it's actually led me to teach D&D classes on OutSchool very recently. And so when I made this speech, I had no idea that in like 3 months I'd be teaching D&D. It's so interesting that I was able to take what I've done in this speech and basically create classes on a speech. So when I say Toastmasters is important to me, it's important. It has led to some amazing opportunities so far. Now, the feedback I got. A few people said it was a very interesting speech. I'm a very great speaker. I am very smooth in my delivery, and they were excited to hear the next one. Very organized with a great delivery. People really liked my confidence that I had and the gestures I used. And I actually got one person interested in gaming again. I received one challenge, and it's a really nice challenge because it led to my next project. But my one friend in the group said to try delivering a speech or a topic that is new to you, that you don't know a lot about. Because obviously I was in my comfort zone, my comfort level, talking about D&D that I love. So he suggested that I challenge myself to do that. Well, my next project in my pathway, this is still level 1 of my Toastmasters journey and my pathway, was researching and presenting. And in the actual project itself, you can pick any topic, but they encourage you to pick a topic you don't know much about. I will tell you this, everyone. I had like 6 ideas for this project, and I was struggling with this one for quite a while. It felt like this project meant that I needed to change my speech style completely and do like a really strong research presentation. However, after talking to a few people in Toastmasters, they're like, no, stick to who you are. If you want to do a speech on archery, go for it, put your twist on it, and have fun. And that's what I did. So I did a lot of research of archery, so I'm going to have to flip through my notebook a little bit here. And I basically had to condense 6 pages of notes into a 5 to 7 minute speech. Crazy, but I do love it a lot. So my 4th speech now, my goodness, Icebreaker, D&D, and art, and this speech is called The Art of Archery. Yes. There's a reason why I called it that, and I'll let you know at the end. Or maybe you can pick it up while I give the speech. Who knows? Thank you, Toastmaster, fellow members, and honored guests. The art of archery has a very long and extensive history, been used exclusively well in key battles or conflicts, and is still practiced today. I didn't realize all of the ways that archery could be practiced, and through my research, I look forward to getting involved in the sport one day, and maybe you will be interested to try as well. Archery is actually one of the oldest arts still practiced today. According to worldarchery.org, archery was first used during the late Paleolithic period around 10,000 BC. When Egypt and their Nubian neighbors used bows and arrows for means of survival and war. As they shared this means of hunting and strategy in war, they remained fairly equal in strength for quite a long period of time. In China, archery was used in a very unique way during the Shang dynasty as part of war chariot teams. On these teams, they are comprised of a driver, a lancer, and an archer. Later, during the Zhou dynasty, archery transformed into sport tournaments that only nobles or the elite could attend or participate in. The next influence on how we practice archery today was when it was introduced to Japan in about the 6th century. The focus became on the etiquette and martial arts techniques of the sport that led to 2 specific forms: Kyujutsu, the art of the bow, and Kyoto, way of the bow. These forms of archery focused on the mind, body, and soul as they released arrows to various targets. All of these influences on archery throughout history has made the sport a very versatile sport to play, whether for hunting, combat, competition, or even spiritually. Despite archery being used in such a variety of ways, when it comes to war and combat, one particular battle stands out the most. Surprisingly, English Heritage UK reports that archery played a key role in the Battle of Hastings in 1066. William, for the Normans, the French, had over 1,000 archers with him as he came across the English Channel. Now Harold, for England, unfortunately only had a handful of archers. English Heritage states that during this time period, archers were actually quite poor in the UK, and since William surprised Harold with his attack in the south of the UK, the archers couldn't follow Harold's pursuit to meet the Normans. They could not follow as they couldn't afford the horses to keep up with the rush to the south. As the Battle of 1066 pushed onwards, William made a key decision to bring his archers forward, to fire arrows over the shield wall that Harold created that gave them the advantage. Archery in the Battle of Hastings in 1066 gave a key advantage, and that would be continued to be used in this way, this strategy, for centuries onwards. As for the modern use of the bow and arrow, there are numerous ways to participate in different forms of archery. There are recreational archers, archers that participate in world championships. It's an event in the Olympics. People attempt to break records every year, and many still do hunt with a bow and arrow. It is very rarely used in combat. However, there is one game that you can play that is combat-like, and that's archery tag, which basically is like paintball, but just with a bow and arrow. Depending on how seriously you take, or not take, archery, there is something for everyone. For example, TargetCrazy.com lists numerous archery sports or activities to participate in, like target archery, the main form where there is a target and you aim to fire at the target. There is also clout archery, where you are basically using a bow and arrow and shooting at targets painted on the ground with a flagpole, kind of like golf. What's amazing is that Kyoto, the way of the bow, is also still practiced today, as people will focus a lot on the marksmanship with the arrow, techniques and different ways to shoot an arrow, or even focus simply on silencing the mind to find a spiritual connection to the act of archery. Archery is definitely an art form and sport that I can see remaining for centuries longer, as more versions and games are continually being created, even right now. Through its extensive and vast history, the unique advantage it had in the Battle of Hastings, and the variety of ways it is still practiced today, archery is a very unique sport that attracts thousands of people every year. As there is a form of archery for every person, I encourage you to see if there is something out in the archery world for you. Even if it's just to play tag or target practice, you'll be participating in the continued history of this beautiful sport. Thank you. Oh man, I did a whole speech on archery, guys. What? Isn't that crazy? I love it. Now let me get back to the feedback. Sorry guys, it's getting through here. Getting to that final feedback. Right. So the reason why it's taking me a little while to flip through is that speech took me almost an entire month to finish and practice and memorize. When it came to research projects and making a presentation on them, I have never been super motivated for them, which is really sad. I think everyone should be challenged to learn something new and share it. So this was a really eye-opening experience for me, and I think now that I've kind of struggled a little bit in forming this speech, I am now more motivated than ever to keep learning and keep growing. So the speech really led to a lot of what's been happening currently in Toastmasters for me. But we'll get into that. Let me give you the feedback that I had. I had really great eye contact and gestures. It was very well structured and executed. I was also given the feedback that I'm a very engaging speaker. And I had way better camera angle. And the same person said it was a fabulous speech. I love it. And I was also recommended that I can narrow down the examples. I did go into quite a few examples in different parts of the speech, so maybe narrow it down a little bit. I had really good humor. I was very informative, lots of examples. I had, again, vocal variety and great eye contact. I had a really great presence in this one as well. It goes to show you that camera angle is important. I had an interesting title, very organized, I connected with the audience well, pleasing voice, and I had a lot of sincerity and connections to everyone. The one suggestion that I would got in this feedback is to maybe add, instead of always just talking normally and then raising my voice, to maybe also include a little element of whispering, to really go from normal to quiet to high. So that was a nice, good feedback. I really liked that and appreciated it. The other thing my evaluator mentioned was maybe create a more mysterious title to leave the audience guessing. His suggestion to me was, instead of The Art of Archery, was maybe title it something like The Ancient Art. Okay, I like that. Next time I get into a creative speech like this, I will have to keep that in mind. Now this is where I hit the ball running for Toastmasters. I was given the news after this speech that we are having a contest in the club. And to be part of the contest, you need to complete all of your level 1 and 2. This is why I've been very busy and focused on Toastmasters, because I had a lot to do. And I've even had to join another club briefly on Tuesday mornings to get everything done. And I'm happy to say, as of today, I will be finished my level 2 this Saturday in time for the speech next Saturday. Crazy. Cutting it very close. But here is where my speeches really come together. I do a speech on communication styles and mentoring and a mentoring experience. So these are the next 2 speeches before I reveal my contest speech to you all. So let's begin. My next project was to work on my communication style. Now this basically was me taking a questionnaire through the Toastmasters pathway, and it teaches you a little bit about what your communication style is and goes through your results and explains it to you, and then you have to give a speech on what you've learned about communication styles, your communication style, and recommendations on how your communication style can be adjusted to others to really enhance the idea of communicating with other people. So here we go. Now for this one, I actually need to open up my PowerPoint because I was also challenged a little while ago, I think with that archery speech, to maybe create a PowerPoint with very specific information on it. So I did that for this speech. I tried, at least. And I'll tell you about the feedback on that after. Okie dokie. So, let us begin. My approach when it comes to learning or discovering anything new about myself is to reflect on it personally and understand how the options not applicable to me can be applicable. This is how I understood how not only my communication style works for me, but how the others do or could as well. Now let me begin by defining communication style. These are the way in which individuals interact with each other and the messages they send, intentionally or not, through their behaviors, like body language, tone of voice, eye contact, these kinds of things. Now there are 4 types of communication styles that we use in Toastmasters. There's direct, analytical, supportive, and initiating. I will go through each one of these styles as I go through my results with you all. Now, I am not surprised with my results at all. I scored a 9 in the supportive category, a 2 in direct, 1 in initiating, 0 in analytical. But what does supportive mean? Why am I not surprised? Well, the key words that came out of the supportive communication style was amiable, sincere, and gentle. My voice alone gives off this vibe, as I've been learned and told. However, being this patient, amiable person also means that I'm a great active listener. I'm very cooperative, understanding, dependable, and that's basically how I've been described my entire life. It's not surprising to me. The environment that I thrive in the most is one that is patient, slow-paced, and no tension, no stress. That definitely is me. I like having no stress environment. The thing that is very important to me and what I've been working on is putting a high priority on close relationships, building that up, nurturing each other, taking care of each other. Now, direct. The key words for the direct communication style that relates to me is results-oriented, focused, motivated, and independent. When I need to get something done and I am super motivated for it, I will do it and work on it by myself and with a lot of focus. Especially if I can see what the results will be. And what Toastmasters is, for me, is that I can see myself becoming a more open person and wanting to communicate more, which is super important. Now, the environment for a direct person, it has to be busy. However, it can't be chaotic. It has to be structured and efficient to them. I'm definitely that way, especially as a teacher. As a teacher, your life is chaotic and you're changing classrooms and things go all over the place. As long as you are prepared for it and have a backup plan and a structure that you follow, you're fine. The advice, though, for direct style approach is to allow others to share their feelings and encourage more dialogue. Don't just have them go right to the point. Maybe stop them and go, hey, are you sure you feel okay about that? That would be one way to do it. Initiating communication style, the key words here are sociable, enthusiastic, fun-loving nature. I embody that every week here in Toastmasters. I am very enthusiastic. I'm so excited about each part of the meeting, and even when I deliver a speech, I'm excited. I'm very enthusiastic about what I am going to be sharing with everyone. Relationships are also important for initiating. They really want to connect with other people and share their ideas, their thoughts, and their enthusiasm. So that's how relationships work for them. Things to be cautious of: when you are very excited and energetic, we tend to talk a lot. It's very natural, we just get excited, but we have to remember to allow others to share about themselves more in this kind of situation. Maybe even say, you know what, I have been talking for a long time, I'm very sorry about that, what do you think? Or how are you feeling? That will bring them back into the conversation. Now, analytical. I am not an analytical person. However, there are some parts of this communication style that I can see myself working on or developing more. Being more cautious, being a problem solver and diplomatic. I actually have mediated panels before and being a very good neutral party, and I offer really good solutions if I can think of them in that time. I am a little analytical that way. However, the things I need to work on more is being more precise, get to the point with things faster, and maybe be a little more disciplined and realistic, not to really burn myself out further. Now here are some ways that you can adjust your style to others. You need to notice how people are responding to you. Did they pick up their phone in the middle of a conversation because they're tuning you out? Are they looking around, not looking at you anymore? Maybe you need to think of something else to really get their interest and their engagement. And that's okay. If it's not working out, try a different tactic. Maybe invite them back into the conversation. Maybe have them share their thoughts or feelings about it. You can do things like that. It's also important to remember that everyone wants to be heard, seen, and understood. You need to make sure that whoever you're communicating with has that sense of being heard and seen. Also, remember to be yourself, but don't overpower others. We all have that tendency to want to share everything in our heads, but we need to remember that it's two people in a conversation, not just one. Now it's your turn. I'm curious how you should learn, how do you communicate with others? What is your style and how does it work for you? How can it work with others? And what can you do to help better communicate with someone else? Reflection is key, as well as time, observation, and studying your own communication style. I hope that my process of showing you how to do this will not only continue to help myself, but will help you as well. Thank you. Okay, there's that speech out of the way. Oh, goodness. I got a lot of good feedback with this one, and I was really impressed because when I practiced that speech, I almost kept going 8 minutes, and it was only a 5 to 7 minute speech, but for that day, I delivered it in 7 minutes and 10 seconds. Phew! I was only 10 seconds after, not a huge penalty, so I felt really good about that. Now, I had a lot of really good feedback. Some people said it was very organized, easy to follow, a very strong ending, and there was a lot of sincerity. My friend Cornelia said I managed to turn a very dry topic into an interesting speech through my personal content and stories. The flow was very smooth. I had really great eye contact and gestures again. Very good vocal variety. It was easy to follow. And I had one person say that going from primary, like the main results of my communication styles, to the last one was such a great structure and very helpful. And someone said that I was brave for sharing and speaking about my own weaknesses as a communicator. And and then finally, I had really well use of the slides. So the slides went really, really well. The feedback I got, like the things to improve on, was maybe to have a more stronger closing, maybe listing the pros and cons of the communication styles instead of doing the call to action. That was his preference, and I can see why that would be effective and why it would work. For me, it's not how I think though, but maybe I'll challenge myself to do that in a speech further down the road. Whew. All right, now we're getting into the speech I'll be delivering on Saturday, my last speech to complete my level 2. Now this speech, the project is the introduction to Toastmasters mentoring. So there's a lot of information to go through and read through why Toastmasters believes in mentoring and how it works and why you should look into being a mentor or having a mentor. But the main idea for the speech was to go through an experience where you were a protege to a mentor. And it could be at any point in your life, basically any experience, someone who is basically like a mentor to you. However, I'm very lucky, everyone, as in my education program, I had 2 teaching mentors because I did 2 teaching practicums or field experience. So my mentor experience is on my very first teaching practicum. I'm so excited to share this with you guys. You are learning a lot about me in just these few speeches, so yay. It's always a weird thing to be vulnerable and sharing your life, but here I am. I'm going to do it. So let's begin with my speech titled A Mentoring Experience. It's not easy starting your career. There is the excitement, the thrill, the unknown. Fortunately, we all have had some guidance and help at some point in the beginning. I know I would not have gone and done all that I've been able to do, teaching in the UK, for example, without my first teaching mentor. Now, believe this if you can, but I was actually an awful public speaker all throughout high school and throughout most of my university experience. I experienced what many experience: the shakes, the dry throats, who or where to look at in the room, and what to do with your hands. Before my last year of university, I could not overcome these things. When I met my mentor for the first time in a meeting, I admitted to her about this weakness in public speaking. Instead of her being judgmental or discouraging me from continuing onwards, she shared her experiences and how she struggled with public speaking as well. I knew that I had found a great mentor after hearing her experiences and how she struggled and had obviously overcame it 10 years later in her career. My instincts were correct. In the short 6 weeks we had together, I felt like I grew taller. We set a goal every single week based on the feedback that she would give me, the department lead, but also she brought in the students to give me feedback. Not only did we have this weekly goal setting, we met daily one-on-one as well to go over the strategies being used, how I felt trying new things, as well as switching it up when it wasn't working or if we needed to change. For example, to help me with my public speaking problem, we ended up rearranging her entire classroom so that my workspace would be at the front of the room, where I'd be forced to having 30 to 40 pairs of eyes staring at me all the time. This eventually led for me to be a lot more comfortable, in the end, delivering lessons on speaking, as they were already looking at me. What could go wrong? And I ended up having that attitude and that shift. We also managed to help me with my timing of lessons. 80 minutes is a long, long time, and you have to fill that 80 minutes with activities, starting activities, main activities, reflection activities. You have to find a way to fill that 80 minutes, and I struggled. It was not until we looked at my lesson plan template that we realized that it wasn't constructed in a way that I thought or think with. We ended up sitting down together and working on a whole new template that actually somehow managed to use how I thought and how I taught to really use it in a way that fixed the mistakes, fixed the timing errors. After we did this one change, my lessons for the rest of that practicum hit the 80-minute mark every single time. There was no judgment and no discouragement. She only gave a lot of support, time for reflection, and guidance as we both worked together to find what worked best for my developing teaching style. The best part about having her as a mentor for me was realizing that we were both still learning together and from each other. At the end of the program, she revealed to me that I was her first student teacher she's ever mentored. It didn't feel like I was her first. It felt like she had mentored a few times before, not just this one time. What made her an amazing mentor was a lot of different things. She was patient in helping me find goals to work on and to discover my strengths. She never judged or tried to control the experience, and she never made me feel like someone who would ever fail at being a teacher. Instead, she shared her experiences with me as a guide and to show me that I was not alone in this process. She critiqued fairly with suggestions and options to move forward, and she was willing to listen to all of my ideas in order to shape them for her students and classes. All of these things are what a mentor should strive to be or do in order to help new protégés like myself just 3 years ago. Starting a new journey is terrifying, but having someone guide, push, and support you through it eases the fear over time. I recommend that you seek out a mentor for any challenge or new beginning for yourself, as you will be surprised at how much you can learn from a single person. Thank you. Oh, goodness, guys. Oh, I'm very excited to deliver this speech on Saturday because I think a lot of the members of my club, and maybe you guys can hear it as I've re-delivered all these speeches, will be surprised to hear about me struggling with public speaking. And I mean, I have a feeling I'll have another learning curve with it when we meet in person instead of being on a camera, because you actually do need to stand up at a podium. So I might have the little struggles when we get back to in person. But I'm very excited to get through the speech. And maybe in the next episode, I'll share with you guys the feedback I got. Or maybe you can give me feedback. That might be an idea. But without further ado, though, I will now deliver the speech that I wrote for my contest. Now, this speech is very open-ended, although there is a timing structure to it. It is another speech that is 5 to 7 minutes, so I'm actually going to take a mental note of what time the speech starts at, so I can see how long it actually takes to deliver it. So you guys are my first vocal trial run of this speech. I'm very excited. This topic is something really important to me and something I am actually still working on for myself. So I hope that this will be an interesting speech to hear for not just you, for everyone in my club and onwards if I advance forward in the contest. Without further ado, my contest speech is titled Stand Up. Stand up. No, not literally, but pause and think. Stand up. Two simple words that causes a response to be formed. Instinctually, some of you may have wanted to physically get up simply at hearing that spoken command. Others shrunk back down in their seats, hoping to not be noticed, seen, or called upon. Two simple words that mean so much depending on the context. A command, a response of fear, but also a call to action. When we hear stand up, we have those two reactions immediately. But what about the third? We hear from teachers, parents, friends, many people that we need to stand up. But what does it mean to stand up though? Well, we can stand up in different ways. For others, for injustices in the world, and for ourselves. Now, how many of you find yourselves thinking, well, I can stand up for others. I can stand up for the unfair situations in the world. But myself? I'm sure there are people who can stand up for themselves and have many times in their life. But what if you can't? The world affects people in a variety of ways, and learning the valuable skill of vouching for yourself aids in our needs and wants for ourselves. However, what about people in crisis who, depending on the situation, cannot stand up in order to face the dangers in front of them? What about the people who have been taught their entire lives that they are wrong with everything they say? This skill, over the years, is slowly being not taught or experienced in safe ways for so many. What can we do for those who can't stand up? Well, as someone who does not have the skill herself to stand up for what she wants, this has been the question I've been internalizing personally over the years. From not having an environment at home to speak your mind without immediate criticism to having been thrown into many situations where your expectations are completely ignored, you begin to completely fear standing up. While living and teaching in the United Kingdom, I was often promised the ideal teaching role. Teaching English full-time in a school for 2 years. However, in those 2 years, I ended up only teaching English full-time for 2 whole weeks. My role changed so often in both schools I was at that I was left confused, miserable, and so incredibly lost. Why did the agency side with the school's needs over my own? Why did the school refuse to acknowledge what I wanted? It's complicated and political even to explain, but what I didn't do was stand up. What do we do to learn how to stand up? Well, here is what I am doing in hopes to never allow these situations to continue again. Meet new people and learn about their lives. We need models of people in our lives to show us how to handle situations in different ways and to encourage us to try something new, like Toastmasters. You can talk about it and be vulnerable. A big task for most, but finding people you trust with your weaknesses is validating for us who feel lost. Now, for the harder and more critical situations in the world, these strategies won't work, obviously. However, change begins with us. Learn to not only literally stand up, but stand up for yourself and watch the world change before you, for others, and for yourself. Oh. I think I like it. Now that I've spoken the speech out loud, I like it. There might be a few things that I might add or change and create a little more transitions between things. We'll see. But that is my contest speech. Now for you guys in the podcast, I'll explain to you why I chose that topic or the phrase, stand up. I think I revealed a little bit as to why throughout the speech, of course, but I have never been someone able to do that. And when I do, I don't do it in a healthy way. I do it in a way of like, I don't like this anymore, goodbye, kind of way. Not healthy. But sometimes you do need that quick cutoff. So I'm not going to say that the things I've done is wrong. I'll just say that there could have been other ways to do it. Yes. So for me, building the skill to stand up takes time and patience, and I need to meet new people and experience new things in order to really see it in action, so then I can eventually try it for myself. And that's the goal. I feel like Toastmasters will definitely help me with that, as we've already been given some grammar lessons where instead of saying, I would like to tell you all about this thing, just be direct, stand up for yourself, say, I am going to talk about this. So just even that simple lesson is helping me become more assertive, to stand up. And I think that speech is really nice to admit it and kind of go into the connotations of stand up, but also for me to realize that, yeah, this is a skill we all need in our lives. And I think it could make the world better in the long run. Yeah, so there you guys have it. That has been all of my Toastmaster speeches from day one to the upcoming contest. Let me know what you guys all think. And if you liked a speech, tell me which one you liked. Let me know about the contest speech. I think that one, for me, is coming from my heart a lot more than the others. So this is your chance to give me feedback. And let me know what you think, truly. I hope this also demonstrates to you guys the Toastmasters program quite well. I went through what the projects are, what they were for, and I gave you all the feedback I received and how I think I've managed to really implement a lot of it in this podcast alone. So thank you guys so much for getting cozy by the fire and listening to my speeches and rambles. I very much appreciate the support. Give it a like, drop it down a comment, and I will see you all the next time in the Dragon's Den.